I've heard about this being a whistle language. Is it tonal?
Oh yeah, yeah,
What,
yeah.
had you had training with tonal languages at Summer Institute of Linguistics in
Uh,
Norman, Oklahoma?
we were aware that there were tonal languages. We knew a little bit about them, but the whistle, that came up in an interesting way. It was a rainy day that it actually happened. Chamia, our next door neighbor, a teenage boy, his job every day was to go and get firewood on the mountain for his mother. Well, firewood was all wet, so no work today. There was no school, of course, out there at all at that time. So he was just nothing to do. And he was leaning against the door of our home. And one of the local girls, Irene, was helping Florrie around the place. She happened to be sweeping the floor. And all of a sudden, she up with the broom and walloped him over the head as hard as she could hit him. And we looked up startled and said, "What in the world are you doing?" She said, "He was teasing me." We said, "He didn't say a word. He'd only been whistling, see? We didn't think anything of it." She said, "Oh, yes, he was." And she started to tell us what he'd been saying in the whistles. Because the women understand everything whistled, but they never do it. It's culturally not for women to do, but they understand because it's their language that's being whistled. So they follow everything. So he was teasing her in the whistles until she wouldn't accept. So we learned that the men could talk in whistles. The women didn't, but the men could. And that a lot of the times that we had just thought they were whistling, they were talking back and forth. They don't do it all the time. They only do it occasionally. Normally they talk. And the language is quite, it seems to us obviously tonal when you listen to them talk. We discovered that the whistle was a real answer to our discerning the tones, because I trained my language helpers that whenever they said something that I didn't quite get the tones right, I'd ask them then to whistle it. Well, then the tones just stood out beautifully. Mm-hmm. And it was a real help. And Tino, who worked with me quite a bit, I had him trained so that when I was talking to someone and I mispronounced a word tonally, so that I said something I shouldn't have, that he would just quietly whistle the tone without interrupting the conversation to let me know that I should have said it this way, and so on. So it became very, very useful. For example, and every now and again they would involve me in a conversation. One of the men came by early one morning. He was going on a trip down the trail, about 5 hours, and now it's early in the morning and he doesn't want to interrupt or disturb the neighborhood. So instead of calling to me like he normally would have, he just whistled. And I heard my name in the whistle. So I answer back whistling. "What do you want?" "Let's go," he says. I say to him, "Where are you going, friend?" He says to me, "I'm going to Tenango." He named this village 5 hours down the trail. So I say to him, "When will you be back?" "Maybe tomorrow," he says. So I say to him, "Have a good trip then." And as he goes off, he whistles back, "Okay, we'll talk again then someday," which is their way of saying goodbye. Now that is all just plain straightforward conversation in Mazateco. Now, if he had not whistled but had called and had spoken, I'll do that, then I'll do the whistle, and you'll see what the secret of it is. So he comes and he calls, "He lai chahore." "Hey, you, George." So I answer back, "Manny." "What do you want?" "Tianari." "Let's go." And I say to him, "Nyati mindari." "Where are you going, friend?" He says, "Tenango, Tifinia." I'm going to Tenango, this town down the trail. So I say to him, "Ho chung kwa ai." "When will you be back?" "Ganjaunlanga kwe." "Maybe tomorrow." So I say to him, "Tilalandai ni." have a good trip then, meaning I'm not going to go. And then as he goes off, hashtalanga. And I just, so what I'm doing, I'm whistling the tones without the sounds. And the tune tells you as much about what was said as the sounds do in Mazateco. That shows how prominent, how important it is in the language, the pitch. So we have to write vowels and consonants and something to show what level of pitch you're talking on. And we do that with little raised footnote numbers.
Mm-hmm.